Every morning you have two choices: to wake up and drift, or to wake up and command your mind. Most people open their eyes and immediately surrender to the phone, to anxiety, to whatever emotion happens to appear first. But the Stoics taught something different, that the first moments after waking are sacred. They are the foundation of your entire day. How you begin determines how you endure. If your mind isn't trained, the world will train it for you. It will tell you what to think, what to fear, what to chase. You'll start reacting instead of living. That's why discipline must begin in the morning, not with perfection, but with awareness. Before the noise, before the chaos, before the world demands anything from you, you meet yourself, quietly, because the strongest warriors don't begin their day in a rush. They begin in silence. Marcus Aurelius started his mornings reminding himself of the people he would meet, of the challenges to come, and of his own duty to remain calm through them. He didn't seek comfort, he sought clarity. That's the power of a disciplined mind. It doesn't wait for peace to appear, it creates it. And that begins with one simple act. Lesson 1. Quietly start. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let it guide you. When you open your eyes, resist the instinct to reach for your phone, your plans, your worries. Just breathe. Let your body remember that you're alive. That's your first victory of the day. Awareness before reaction. The Stoics believed that silence was not absence, it was preparation. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Every second you spend in mindless noise is a second stolen from your purpose." So begin the morning as the Stoics did. Slowly, deliberately, as if you are tuning your soul before playing the day's symphony. Sit for a moment in stillness. Observe your thoughts instead of being pulled by them. They'll start to appear, the to-do lists, the fears, the memories, but don't fight them. Just watch. Because the mind you observe, you can control. The mind you ignore controls you. Quiet mornings build quiet strength. You begin to notice the space between stimulus and response, that sacred gap where discipline lives. The moment before you speak, before you react, before you let the world dictate your mood. That's where self-control is born. This is why monks, generals, and philosophers all begin their days the same way, in silence. It's not superstition, it's strategy. You can't direct a storm if you start by becoming part of it. And as you sit there in the early light, something changes. The mind softens, the noise fades. You remember that before anything else, you are in charge. You decide the tone, the tempo, the energy of your day. So start quietly, not to escape the world, but to master it. Because the discipline of the morning is the discipline of life. And maybe that's where greatness begins. Not in grand gestures, but in a few quiet minutes when you decide that your mind belongs to you and nothing else. Lesson 2. Identify the virtue of the day. Every morning the Stoics practiced something we've almost forgotten, the deliberate act of defining who they wanted to be before the day began. Not what they wanted to achieve, not what they hoped would happen, but the virtue they wanted to embody. They knew that without moral direction, even the most disciplined mind can drift into chaos. And so, before Marcus Aurelius faced the weight of an empire, before Seneca advised rulers and faced exile, they each asked themselves a simple question: what virtue will guide me today? It's a practice that looks small, but it rewires the entire day. Because when you start with virtue, you start with clarity. You stop reacting from impulse and begin acting from intention. You start filtering your choices, not through comfort, but through character. The Stoics defined 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. But the beauty of this practice is that you can choose any virtue: honesty, patience, focus, humility, whatever your life is asking of you right now. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be conscious, to choose one quality that you will embody deliberately from sunrise to sunset. For example, if you know the day ahead will test your patience, choose patience as your virtue. Carry it like armor. When frustration arises, remind yourself, this is my practice today. If you're facing a challenge that frightens you, choose courage. When fear whispers, remember, this is what I trained for. If you're surrounded by distraction, choose focus. And every time you resist temptation, you're keeping your promise to yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's what this ritual is. It turns philosophy into action. It moves virtue from theory into flesh. Because virtue isn't something you think about, it's something you live. This morning ritual grounds your mind in what truly matters. Instead of letting your mood decide your behavior, you let your values lead it. And that single shift from emotion to virtue is what separates a chaotic day from a meaningful one. When you name your virtue at dawn, you create a compass for your mind. No matter what happens, you return to it. Someone disrespects you. You return to patience. You fail. You return to humility. You succeed. You return to gratitude. The world will try to pull you in 100 directions, but your chosen virtue keeps you centered, calm, deliberate, unshakable. Epictetus told his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That's what the morning virtue is. Embodiment. You can't control how people treat you, how the day unfolds, or what problems arise. But you can always control who you are in the middle of it. So tomorrow morning, before the rush begins, pause and ask yourself quietly, who do I want to be today? Don't answer with goals, answer with a quality of spirit. Because the truth is, discipline doesn't come from rigid rules, it comes from remembering your virtues. When you begin your day guided by one, you give your actions purpose, your emotions direction, and your mind peace. And maybe that's what wisdom really is, not knowing everything, but knowing who you choose to be before the day even begins. Lesson 3. Premeditatio Malorum. Every morning before stepping into the world, the Stoics practiced a quiet mental exercise called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. It sounds dark at first, almost pessimistic, but it's the opposite. It's the art of preparing your mind for life as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. Because when you expect life to be gentle, every inconvenience feels like betrayal. But when you remember that difficulty is the rule, not the exception, you stop being shocked and start being ready. Marcus Aurelius began each morning reminding himself that he would meet people who were meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly, not to grow bitter, but to stay calm. He understood that anger comes from unrealistic expectations, and peace comes from accepting reality before it arrives. That's the power of Premeditatio Malorum. It turns surprise into strategy. To practice it, take a moment before your day begins and imagine the things that could go wrong, not obsessively, but deliberately. Think, what if plans change? What if someone disappoints me? What if I fail? Then go deeper. If that happens, how will I respond? You rehearse your response, not your reaction. You train your mind to remain steady in chaos. This isn't pessimism, it's emotional armor. Seneca called it rehearsing adversity. He wrote, "He robs present ills of their power, who has already seen their coming." The Stoics didn't wait for storms to practice calm. They practiced calm so that when storms came, they were ready. That's the difference between anxiety and awareness. Anxiety imagines tragedy and collapses under it. Awareness imagines difficulty and prepares to face it with grace. Try this tomorrow morning. Before you step out of bed, visualize small irritations, the delay, the argument, the bad news, the unexpected problem. Then say to yourself, "These are not obstacles, they are exercises." Each challenge becomes a weight for the mind, something to strengthen rather than weaken you. Just as the body grows by resistance, the soul grows by hardship. When you expect difficulty, you meet it with calm. When you prepare for loss, you appreciate more deeply what you have. When you rehearse discomfort, comfort loses its control over you. That's the quiet beauty of Premeditatio Malorum. It frees you from panic, because nothing can truly surprise the one who has already accepted that life will test them. Epictetus told his students, "When you are about to undertake an action, remind yourself what kind of action it is. If you go for a walk, expect the mud. If you love, expect heartbreak. If you pursue ambition, expect criticism." Then, when these things happen, you can smile and say, "Of course, I knew this was part of it." This practice builds emotional discipline in its purest form. You stop wasting energy resisting what is natural. You start flowing with life instead of fighting it. And ironically, that makes you more optimistic, not less. Because you stop hoping for an easy day and start trusting yourself to handle a hard one. So each morning, rehearse the possible evils calmly, wisely, without fear. Then remind yourself that whatever comes, your mind is prepared, your spirit is anchored, your peace is untouchable. And maybe that's the real purpose of this ritual. Not to expect suffering, but to remember that no matter what happens, you've already trained for it. Lesson 4. Distinguish between what is controllable and what is not. Every storm in your life begins with confusion between what you can control and what you can't. The Stoics believed this was the root of all unnecessary suffering, not the events themselves, but the way we entangle our peace with things far beyond our command. Every morning, they trained their minds to draw that line clearly. What depends on me and what does not? Because the mind that knows the difference walks through chaos calmly, while the mind that doesn't is dragged by every wave. Epictetus opened his teachings with this principle: some things are up to us, and some things are not. It's the first line of his Enchiridion, the foundation of Stoicism itself. And yet, it's also the hardest lesson to live, because even when we know what's beyond our control, we still resist it emotionally. We still replay what went wrong, wish people would act differently, and worry about outcomes we can't influence. That's why this practice must be daily, because the world tempts us every morning to lose perspective. So before your day begins, pause and ask, what do I control today? Your choices, your effort, your words, your reactions, that's it. Everything else is weather. You can't control the economy, other people's moods, traffic, or time itself. You can only control how you show up in the face of these things. When you understand that, frustration loses its grip. You stop expecting the world to cooperate with your plans. You start preparing your mind to adapt. If someone disrespects you, you can't control them, but you can control whether you respond with anger or composure. If something doesn't go your way, you can't control the result, but you can control whether you learn or complain. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every morning as a kind of mental hygiene. He reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The emperor faced betrayal, loss, and war. Yet he found peace, because he refused to give external forces power over his internal state. He understood that serenity doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from inner alignment. Think about how much of your energy is wasted on things you cannot alter. What people think of you, what might happen next week, what could have been said differently. This is mental clutter. Every time you invest in what's uncontrollable, you abandon what is. The Stoic practice is to reclaim that energy, to pour it back into the present moment where your choices still matter. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The imagination is where we try to control the uncontrollable. We replay, predict, and panic, but none of it changes anything. Wisdom begins when you redirect that energy toward what you can change. Your mindset, your discipline, your actions. This daily reminder can reshape your entire life. When you accept what's outside your control, you stop reacting. You start responding. You stop fighting every wave and learn to sail through them. Life doesn't become easier. You just stop wasting your strength on the impossible. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up, draw that invisible circle around your power. Inside it, your effort, your integrity, your focus. Outside it, everything else. Then promise yourself, "I will give my full energy to what's inside and serenity to what's outside." Because once you truly see that distinction, you stop trying to control the storm and start becoming the calm within it. And maybe that's what it means to master the mind, not to control the world, but to remain unshaken no matter how the world moves. Lesson 5. Act now. There is a quiet but deadly habit that destroys more lives than failure ever will. Hesitation. The Stoics saw it as one of the greatest enemies of the mind, the illusion that you can wait for the right moment. They knew that the right moment almost never comes, and that the more you postpone action, the more your courage decays. Because discipline is not built in thoughts or intentions, it's built in movement. Marcus Aurelius began each day by reminding himself that he was born to act. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work as a human being." He didn't mean work in the narrow sense, but in the Stoic sense, fulfilling your role in the world, doing what reason and purpose demand, not what comfort desires. Action is not just movement, it's alignment between what you believe and what you do. Most people spend their mornings trapped in hesitation. They replay yesterday's regrets, scroll through distractions, or wait for motivation. But motivation is unreliable. It arrives after action, not before it. You can't think your way into discipline, you must act your way into it. The Stoics called this prohairesis, the ability to choose and move according to reason, regardless of emotion. It's not about how you feel, it's about what you do anyway. Seneca wrote, "While we are postponing, life speeds by. Every time you delay what matters, you shrink your future. Every later becomes a habit, and every habit becomes a life." That's why the Stoics lived with urgency. Not panic, but purpose. They understood that time is the one resource we can never replenish. So, the disciplined mind wakes and acts, not recklessly, but immediately. Action grounds the mind. When you move, you silence the chaos of overthinking. You stop living in the abstract world of what if and return to the concrete world of what is. You don't need to plan the whole mountain. You just need to take one step, and then another. That's how the Stoic builds momentum, through consistent, rational action in the present moment. Fear fades in motion. Doubt dissolves when you face it. You've probably noticed it. The tasks you dread most lose their power the second you start them. The hardest part is never the work itself. It's the mental resistance before it. That resistance is your real opponent, and action is your weapon. Epictetus told his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." The moment you act, you move from theory to reality. You stop being someone who talks about discipline and become someone who practices it. Every morning is an opportunity to prove to yourself that you mean what you say. The Stoic doesn't wait for the stars to align. He acts within imperfection. He doesn't wait for fear to disappear. He moves despite it. He doesn't wait for motivation. He builds it through consistency. Tomorrow morning, when hesitation whispers 5 more minutes, remember, that voice doesn't want your peace. It wants your potential. Silence it with action. Get up, move, begin. Even the smallest act in the right direction has more power than 1,000 perfect intentions. And when you move, do it fully, without doubt, without apology, because once you act, you stop living in the realm of potential and start living in the realm of reality. So act now, not because you're ready, but because waiting will only teach your mind to hesitate again. Discipline is not born from comfort. It's born from doing what must be done, even when you'd rather not. And maybe that's what separates the ordinary from the remarkable. The few who stop waiting for courage and start creating it through action. Lesson 6. Memento Mori. Every morning the Stoics reminded themselves of something most people spend their lives avoiding. You are going to die. Not to fall into despair, but to wake up, to remember what truly matters before the day sweeps it away. This meditation on mortality, called Memento Mori, was not morbid or pessimistic. It was a tool, a way to sharpen the mind, to strip away trivialities, to remind yourself that time is slipping, quietly, every second. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say," and think. He was not being poetic. He was being brutally honest. The Emperor of Rome, with all the power and wealth the world could offer, still reminded himself daily that he was just a man with limited days, and that his duty was to live them well. Death is not the enemy. Forgetting that you will die, that's the real danger. Because when you forget it, you waste time on pettiness, on distraction, on seeking approval. You argue over nonsense. You postpone joy. You put off your purpose, thinking you have more time. But Memento Mori burns through illusion. It whispers, you don't. Seneca said, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it." He saw people live as if they would never die, and die as if they had never lived. That is the tragedy Memento Mori seeks to prevent. It brings urgency to the present moment. It teaches you to stop saying someday and start saying today. Try this tomorrow morning. As you wake, pause and say to yourself, if today were my last day, would I live it differently? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Notice what you would stop tolerating, who you would forgive, what you would finally begin. That is your real list of priorities, not your schedule, not your inbox, not what the world expects. Remembering death doesn't make you fearful. It makes you free. It frees you from the illusion that life owes you anything. It frees you from the trap of chasing endless goals that never satisfy. When you hold death in your awareness, you start valuing the small moments, the breath of morning air, the quiet coffee, the sound of someone you love laughing. The Stoics carried this awareness everywhere. Some even kept symbols, a skull on the desk, a ring with the words Memento Mori engraved, as daily reminders that every breath was a gift, not to glorify death, but to glorify life. Because when you truly remember that it ends, you stop sleepwalking through it. Epictetus taught that death itself is not frightening, only the judgment we attach to it. Death is nothing dreadful, he said, but the judgment that death is dreadful, this is what is dreadful. Once you stop fearing it, you begin to live with clarity. You take risks that matter. You say what needs to be said. You stop pretending. You start living honestly, urgently, beautifully. Imagine if you lived each day as a complete story, one you'd be proud to end tonight. You'd stop postponing peace for tomorrow. You'd stop waiting to be happy when things settle down. You'd realize that this morning, this breath, this moment is the only certainty you'll ever have. Memento Mori is not about sadness. It's about perspective. It's a reminder that your time is limited, but your choices are not. You can't control how long you live, but you can control how deeply you live while you're here. So when you open your eyes each morning, don't just plan your day. Remember that it's a day you will never get again. That awareness alone can transform the ordinary into the sacred. And maybe that's the hidden gift of remembering death. It teaches you how to finally live. Lesson 7. Amor Fati. There's a phrase that captures the Stoic spirit more than any other, Amor Fati, which means love your fate, not tolerate it, not endure it, love it. The Stoics believed that the highest form of wisdom is not to wish for a different life, but to embrace the one unfolding in front of you exactly as it is, every twist, every setback, every scar, because resistance creates suffering, but acceptance creates freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That's Amor Fati. It's the mindset of turning every obstacle into fuel, every loss into strength, every detour into direction. It's not blind optimism. It's conscious cooperation with reality. It's the decision to say, "This is mine. I will make it work for me." Most people spend their lives fighting what already is. They waste energy wishing things were easier, or people were different, or time would hurry up and deliver something better. But the Stoic doesn't fight reality. He shapes himself to it. He doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asks, "How can I use this?" Epictetus, who was born a slave, crippled and poor, understood Amor Fati more deeply than anyone. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly." It's not surrender, it's supreme strength. Because when you love fate, you stop being the victim of life and start being its collaborator. Think about it. Every disappointment you've ever faced shaped your strength. Every rejection redirected you towards something better. Every loss taught you how to endure. It's easy to love life when it's kind. The true test of your character is whether you can love it when it's not. The practice of Amor Fati begins in the morning. As you open your eyes, whisper to yourself, "Whatever happens today, I will greet it with acceptance." Whether it's comfort or chaos, praise or criticism, progress or setback, you meet it all the same way, with openness. You remind yourself that everything that comes to you was designed for your growth, even if you can't yet see how. Seneca said, "A good character, when tested, grows stronger." That's why fate tests you, not to punish you, but to polish you. When you resist the events of your life, you stay stuck in bitterness. But when you embrace them, you transform them into wisdom. You stop asking life to be fair and start asking yourself to be fearless. Amor Fati is radical acceptance, not passive, but creative. It's seeing beauty even in pain, meaning even in loss. It's saying yes to the full experience of being human, because you can't choose what happens, but you can always choose how to receive it. When you learn to love fate, you become unbreakable, not because you avoid pain, but because nothing can happen that you cannot use. You can lose everything and still be whole, because your peace is no longer tied to external outcomes. It's rooted in the wisdom that life, even in its cruelty, is a teacher. So the next time something difficult happens, a delay, a failure, a betrayal, don't curse it, study it, accept it, then ask, how can I make this serve me? That question alone turns suffering into power. And maybe that's the secret the Stoics discovered, that peace doesn't come from controlling fate, but from falling in love with it. Because when you learn to love what is, the universe can take nothing from you. You've already said yes to everything. Lesson 8. Train your body as you train your mind. The Stoics believed that philosophy wasn't meant to stay in the head. It had to live in the body. Wisdom that isn't practiced physically is just decoration. To them, discipline was a full-spectrum art. You train your body not for vanity or perfection, but to harden your spirit, to unify thought and action, to prepare yourself for the unpredictable storms of life. Epictetus said, "Difficulties show what men are." The body is where you test that truth. It's easy to talk about resilience when you're comfortable. It's different when your muscles burn, when your lungs tighten, when you want to quit, but don't. That's where philosophy becomes real. That's where the mind learns. I can go further than I thought. The morning is the perfect battlefield for this training. Before the noise of the world begins, move. It doesn't matter how. Walk, stretch, lift, breathe, but move with intention. Let your body feel what effort means. Let it remind you that discipline is not punishment. It's proof of your commitment to life. The Stoics trained early, not to chase beauty, but to cultivate endurance. They understood that a soft body breeds a soft mind, and that physical effort sharpens emotional control. Marcus Aurelius faced illness and exhaustion, yet he still wrote about the importance of rising early to fulfill his duty. "You were born to work," he told himself. "Why then are you reluctant to do what your nature demands?" He saw exercise not as vanity, but as virtue, the act of cooperating with nature's rhythm. Every push against discomfort was a rehearsal for the challenges of the day. Seneca, too, practiced physical austerity. He would fast, endure cold, and sleep on hard surfaces, not to suffer needlessly, but to remind himself that comfort is a choice, not a need. He called it rehearsing poverty, training the body so that fortune could never enslave him. When you practice discomfort voluntarily, you weaken fear. When you strengthen the body, you reinforce the mind's courage. This connection is ancient but forgotten. Today, many people train the body to escape themselves, to distract from the mind. The Stoics trained to unite them. When the body becomes disciplined, the mind follows. Posture straightens thought. Breath steadies emotion. A body that endures teaches the mind that pain is temporary and power is renewable. So tomorrow morning, treat your physical training as meditation in motion. Don't chase performance, chase presence. Feel your feet on the ground, your lungs expand, your heart awaken. Each repetition, each breath is an act of gratitude for being alive. The discipline of movement teaches humility, the realization that progress comes from consistency, not intensity. Epictetus warned, "No great thing is created suddenly. Your strength, physical or mental, won't appear in a burst of effort, but through daily repetition. You train the mind the same way you train the body, through small acts repeated with purpose. Every disciplined morning builds muscle in your willpower. Every drop of sweat writes a line of resilience into your character. And when the body and mind begin to move together, something changes. You stop resisting effort. You start craving it. You begin to see struggle not as suffering, but as sculpting. The boundary between physical and mental discipline disappears. They become one act of devotion to your highest self. Train your body as you train your mind, with patience, humility, and respect. Because the body is the mind's mirror. How you treat it reflects how you treat yourself. Keep it strong, and your spirit will stay unshaken. Neglect it, and your thoughts will collapse at the first sign of pressure. And maybe that's the simplest truth of all. When you teach your body to move through resistance, your mind learns to move through life. Lesson 9. Read and reflect on a Stoic. Quote, "The Stoics began their mornings not by consuming endless information, but by meditating on one simple idea, a line, a phrase, a truth that could guide their thoughts throughout the day. They didn't read for entertainment or distraction, they read for alignment. Each quote was like a compass, small but powerful enough to redirect an entire mind." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." That's why the Stoics were careful with what they read. They understood that the first words you let into your mind each morning shape the quality of your day. Just as the first light shapes the color of dawn. One thought can strengthen your spirit, while another can poison it. So they treated wisdom like food, simple, nourishing, intentional. To read a Stoic quote is to pause time. It's a ritual that invites you to slow down and think, what is this really saying to me? Not just intellectually, but personally. When Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters," he wasn't describing an abstract idea. He was offering a mirror, a reminder that every emotion, every response, every choice begins within you. The goal isn't to memorize hundreds of quotes. It's to live one fully. Pick one line, just one. Read it in the quiet of the morning. Let it sit inside your mind like a seed. Don't rush to analyze it. Just let it work on you. Think about it as you drink your coffee, as you commute, as you face your first challenge. You'll begin to see how it shapes your perception without you even realizing it. For example, if you meditate on Seneca's words, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," you start noticing how many of your worries exist only in your thoughts. You begin catching yourself when you spiral into what-ifs. The quote becomes a guardrail that keeps your mind from falling into unnecessary suffering. If you carry Marcus Aurelius's reminder, you have power over your mind, not outside events. You'll feel your focus narrowing. Suddenly, your energy shifts from frustration to composure, from reacting to choosing. One idea, repeated daily, can rewire your entire mental landscape. The Stoics saw this morning reflection as a form of spiritual exercise, spiritual gymnasia. Just as the body must be trained to endure pain, the mind must be trained to endure thought. Each line of wisdom is a weight for the intellect. The more you lift it, the stronger your clarity becomes. So tomorrow morning, before you open your phone or let the world speak to you, let philosophy speak first. Open a page from Meditations, from Letters from a Stoic, from the Enchiridion. Don't skim. Read slowly, like someone drinking from a sacred spring. Ask yourself, how does this apply to the day ahead? What would this idea look like in my actions today? And as you carry that thought with you, Notice how it changes the way you see. The quote becomes a lens. The same world looks different when viewed through wisdom. Problems shrink. Gratitude expands. Your mind stops chasing chaos and begins searching for meaning. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Maybe that's what this practice really is. The humility to learn every morning as if you know nothing. To let wiser voices guide you before the world fills your head with noise. Because in the end, wisdom is not what you know. It's what you remember when you're tested. And a single Stoic quote, reflected on deeply, can anchor you when everything else pulls you off course. So, read one line, reflect deeply, then go live it. Because the Stoics didn't read to escape reality, they read to conquer it. Lesson 10. Journaling. To the Stoics, writing wasn't a hobby, it was a mirror, a sacred ritual of self-examination. Every morning they met themselves on paper before meeting the world. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations to publish it, he wrote to discipline his own mind. Seneca's letters weren't crafted for fame, they were exercises in clarity. Epictetus's teachings were transcribed not for admiration, but for practice. For the Stoics, journaling was the gym of the soul, a daily training in honesty, humility, and reflection. In a world that moves too fast, writing slows you down. It forces your thoughts, wild, chaotic, and scattered, to take shape. You begin to see what you actually think, what you actually feel. Most people don't suffer from lack of wisdom, they suffer from unexamined noise. Journaling transforms that noise into awareness. It turns emotion into understanding, confusion into order. Marcus Aurelius began each day with questions and reminders. What kind of person do I want to be today? What is within my control? What will I face? These weren't idle thoughts, they were mental armor. Each line was a conversation with himself, a negotiation between reason and impulse. When you write like that, you stop living reactively. You start leading yourself consciously. Seneca described journaling as the cleansing of the mind. Each night he reviewed his day, what he did well, what he failed to do, where he lost his temper or wasted time. He believed that the soul, like the body, needs daily hygiene. You wash your hands to remove dirt. You write to remove self-deception. Because until you face your thoughts honestly, they rule you from the shadows. You don't need to write beautifully. You need to write truthfully. Sit quietly in the morning with a blank page and ask yourself, what am I grateful for? What am I afraid of? What am I avoiding? The page doesn't judge you. It listens. It reflects. It reminds you that growth begins with self-awareness. Start small. A few lines, a few honest sentences. Write what you think, not what sounds good. Describe the storm in your mind, then name the lesson hidden inside it. The act of writing transforms chaos into clarity. You start to see patterns, the same fears that appear, the same excuses you repeat. Over time, journaling becomes a map of your mind, showing you not just where you've been, but where you're headed. Epictetus told his students, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. That's what journaling allows, a dialogue between your ideals and your reality. It's where philosophy becomes practical. You define the person you want to be, and then, day after day, hold yourself accountable to that vision. In the morning, journaling prepares you. At night, it restores you. It's your daily alignment ritual, returning your attention from the outer noise back to your inner compass. In time, it becomes more than a habit. It becomes an anchor. So tomorrow morning, before the world demands your attention, Give it to yourself first. Open the page. Sit with your thoughts. Let your hand move slowly, deliberately, as if each word is a bridge between who you are and who you want to become. You'll start noticing something subtle. The more you write, the lighter you feel. The burden of thoughts turns into the peace of awareness. You begin to see yourself clearly, not perfectly, but honestly. And that honesty, repeated every morning, becomes strength. Because in the end, journaling isn't about documenting your life. It's about directing it. It's not about writing what happened. It's about shaping what happens next. And maybe that's what the Stoics discovered long before us, that the pen, when guided by truth, can quiet even the loudest mind. Lesson 11. Practice gratitude and forgiveness. Every morning before the world rushes in, take a moment to remember you already have more than you think. The Stoics began their days this way, with gratitude not as an emotional luxury, but as a mental discipline. They understood that the human mind is built to notice what's missing, not what's present, and so they trained themselves to reverse that instinct. Gratitude to them wasn't about saying thank you. It was about seeing clearly. Because when you see clearly, resentment disappears. Marcus Aurelius would wake and remind himself, when you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. He didn't say this from comfort. He said it while surrounded by war, betrayal, and sickness. Yet he understood that gratitude isn't born from perfect conditions. It's born from perspective. You don't need a peaceful life to be grateful. You need a peaceful mind. Gratitude disciplines the soul. It shifts you from complaint to command. The moment you say, "I have enough," you stop being controlled by the endless desire for more. You stop chasing and start appreciating. You begin to live instead of waiting to live. But gratitude alone isn't enough. The Stoics paired it with its harder twin, forgiveness, because the mind that can't forgive is never free. You can't carry both peace and resentment in the same heart. Forgiveness, like gratitude, is not a feeling. It's a choice. It's the decision to release the poison before it destroys you. Seneca said, "How much better it is to heal than to seek revenge." To forgive doesn't mean to approve or forget. It means to stop allowing the past to dictate the present. When you wake each morning and forgive yourself, others, the world, you lighten the load your mind carries into the day. You make space for strength, for serenity, for joy. Try this. Before you start your morning routine, close your eyes and name 3 things you're grateful for, even small ones. The air, the sunlight, the fact that you woke up at all. Then think of one person or situation that still stirs bitterness inside you. Breathe into it and quietly say, "I release you." It's not for them, it's for you. Epictetus taught that resentment is a sign of misunderstanding, the belief that others can truly harm your inner self. "No one can harm you," he said, "unless you consent to be harmed." The disciplined mind forgives not to be noble, but to remain unshaken. It refuses to let external events poison internal peace. Gratitude and forgiveness are 2 sides of the same coin. Both are acts of liberation. Gratitude frees you from craving. Forgiveness frees you from hatred. Together, they build a fortress around your mind. When you practice them daily, you start walking through life lighter, calmer, stronger. The little things stop controlling you. The past stops chasing you. The future stops scaring you. And slowly, you begin to understand, peace isn't something you find, it's something you create each morning through perspective. Gratitude teaches you to see beauty in imperfection. Forgiveness teaches you to see humanity in others. Combined, they make your heart untouchable. So, as your day begins, practice both. Whisper, "Thank you," for the chance to try again. Whisper, "I forgive," for the burdens you're ready to put down. Let both thoughts sink deeply into your morning silence. Because that is where strength begins, not in control, not in victory, but in the quiet grace of letting go. And maybe that's the truest discipline of all, to wake each day with open hands, holding on to nothing but peace. Every sunrise is a quiet invitation, a reminder that before the world wakes, before the noise returns, you are given another chance to choose who you'll be. Not by accident, not by habit, but by awareness. That is the heart of Stoic discipline, the ability to meet the day consciously. The way you rise is the way you live. You've learned that silence is not emptiness, it's preparation. That virtue is not a word, it's a compass. That imagining hardship, Premeditatio Malorum, doesn't darken your mind, it strengthens it. You've seen how peace comes from separating what's within your control from what isn't, how life rewards movement more than hesitation, and how remembering death, Memento Mori, fills every moment with meaning. You've discovered that loving your fate, Amor, Fati, is the highest form of freedom. That discipline is not just mental, but physical, born from the body that moves through resistance. You've learned the quiet power of reflection, how one quote can guide your day, how journaling transforms thought into clarity, and how gratitude and forgiveness purify the soul. Each of these lessons builds upon the other, forming not a routine, but a way of living. The Stoics didn't practice these rituals to appear wise. They practiced them to stay awake. They understood that chaos begins in the untrained mind, and that peace must be built daily through deliberate thought and humble repetition. Their mornings were not about perfection. They were about alignment. They trained the mind to serve reason, the body to obey the will, and the heart to accept reality with grace. And so, the next time you wake, don't just open your eyes. Awaken your awareness. Sit for a moment in silence. Ask yourself what virtue will guide you. Prepare for adversity with calm. Act before doubt can speak. Remember that your time is finite. Accept everything that comes. Move your body. Feed your mind with wisdom. Write your truth. Forgive quickly. Be grateful deeply. This is how you discipline your mind, not once, but every morning, not through control, but through consistency. The reward isn't perfection, it's peace. The kind of peace that follows you into the noise of the day, into conflict, into uncertainty, because it was built before the world had a chance to touch you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Those words were not meant for reading, they were meant for living. So live them. Rise each morning like a Stoic, calm, grounded, ready. Let your discipline become your freedom. Let your mornings become your strength. Because once you learn to command your mind at dawn, no storm that follows can take that peace away. And maybe that's all discipline really is, remembering again and again that you already hold the power to begin well, and that how you begin shapes everything that follows.